It's time for another edition of Around the Nest 2.0, where we go up, down, left, right, and all sorts of ways through the Blue Jays minor league system. We're giving you all sorts of tidbits about not just prospects and all sorts of happenings, but life in the minor leagues as well. Tyler reporting from Vancouver, and we got a full nest today. Somebody reporting from every single level. We got Pat with AAA Buffalo with a slice of the Blue Jays as well. We've got a newcomer in Mr. Nathan Strauss representing AA New Hampshire, and our boy AT Loe Dunedin, but he's a mercenary this week. He's up in the Empire State at Salem Field, taking care of business because he's a company man. You got an at Blue Jays email address. They go, you go where they send you. Gentlemen, happy Friday. Another edition of Around the Nest. Hard to believe we've made to 7 episodes. They have yet to kick us off the air. So a happy Friday, and let's get right to it because we know we've got a busy day up and down the system. So without further ado, let's jump to the very top of the ladder. Pat, happy day, Salem Field. Excellent goings-ons for Toronto right now. And the Buffalo Bisons, after a little bit of a dip, looking good as well. Before we dive into some details, what's the vibe been like for the last week for you up there at the big league level and for the AAA fellas?
Yeah, certainly the series against the Yankees last week was a tough one for the Blue Jays, but after going to Baltimore, then sweeping Miami, and now coming home and rattling off 6 runs at the bottom of the first, including the Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Grand Slam yesterday, fans are very excited. And I think one theme we'll have around the nest today is the winning streaks. And, for the Blue Jays, a chance to really pick up some ground, gain some traction against a team like Baltimore, who is, really struggling. And it's been good atmosphere. Over 6,000 fans in the ballpark yesterday. Expecting a lot more of the same tonight, including a big promotion that people are excited for. So it's a big homestand, 10 games in 11 days. And I think we're going to have some really fun crowds, pro Blue Jays crowds over the next week and a half here at Salem Field.
As a guy who's been around Buffalo for a number of years, you know the city, you know the fan base, you know the community. Can you give us a slice of what life has been like there over this last, let's call it the month of June, since the Blue Jays moved their operation from Dunedin to Salem Field?
Yeah, and really, you have to go back to the late 80s and early 90s and know the history of Buffalo baseball, where Bob and Mindy Rich tried to bring Major League Baseball in the expansion era to Buffalo. Unfortunately, they lost out to Miami and Colorado in the expansion of the early 90s, but Buffalo was in the conversation, drawing over 1 million fans a night when the ballpark opened here, Salem Field, then Pilot Field in 1988. So there's a sense of pride among baseball fans in Buffalo that if Major League Baseball ever gave Buffalo a chance, it would shine and it would show how much this is a major league city. And I think that is where really fans start the conversation. And I get a lot of people asking me, could Buffalo ever host a major league team permanently? And while I think some cities may have passed Buffalo, I think it's a sense of pride that even though the Blue Jays can't be in Toronto right now, we're going to take good care of the Blue Jays, and we're going to show them that there are a lot more Blue Jay fans in Buffalo than people might have thought. Yes, this might be a Yankees and a Red Sox town, but last night with Baltimore, a majority, well more than 3,000, 4,000 of those 6,000 fans were Blue Jay fans. And when Lourdes hit the grand slam, or Vladdy's league-leading 24th home run was hit, almost everyone was out of their seat, and it was a very loud atmosphere. So it's a sense of pride and a sense of showing the rest of the baseball world, really, that Buffalo could be and maybe should be a home for Major League Baseball.
And certainly the Blue Jays taking advantage of home away from home, making all those upgrades, certainly a testament to Toronto's commitment to the city of Buffalo and to that fan base as well. So certainly wherever it goes from here, obviously the return to the Rogers Center is imminent, that is, whether it's this season or for opening day next year. But the stage has been set, it sounds like, for whether it's big league baseball in Buffalo or from the Bison's return, a big league mentality. And before we talk about the AAA fellas, Pat, let's quickly get a splash of what it might be like tonight. The first giveaway for the Blue Jays, and none other than a Vladdy Jr. home run counter. Is it a bobblehead as well, or is it just a home run counter? Oh, he's got one. Of course, Pat, you're always prepared. Look at that. That is going to be a hot commodity. I'd be willing to bet that's going to fetch triple digits or higher on the resale market after tonight.
Well, for somebody who's called a few Vladdy home runs, albeit AAA, I had to try and find my way to one. So yeah, the first 7,000 fans tonight are going to get one. It's a Vladdy bobblehead, commemorating what a night he had at the 2019 Home Run Derby, and it's a rotating counter, so you can rack up the home runs. Count it to 24 right now for Vladdy. I think for me, the counter's at 6 of the homers that I called of his for AAA. So it'll be definitely a collector's item for sure.
And a shameless plug for me, my only claim to fame as a broadcaster is I got to call Vladdy's first AA home run. So, Pat, we're compatriots in more ways than one. And cheers to Vladdy having an unreal season, which certainly plenty of ink has been spilled and hot air has been released talking about Vladdy's season. Let's talk about AAA Buffalo. Opportunity for the guys to, get back to work after that COVID postponement in Syracuse the other day, a doubleheader yesterday, although technically taking care of business as they needed to do. So for you, before we talk about some individual performances, what have you liked from the Bisons over the last week?
They just put different ways to win games together. And whether it's shutting out Rochester or holding on last night 5-4 in the nightcap of the Twin Bill, they found different ways to win games. And they're scoring a lot of runs doing it. And really, it was the pitching that led the way the first month, maybe 6 weeks of the season. But the offense has certainly caught up lately. So for the Bisons, having won 7 straight now, and for Syracuse, unfortunately, lost 15 games in a row. The Bisons are the beneficiary of playing some teams that are struggling right now, but you've got to go out there and play the game. So they've done a good job of just taking care of business and doing it different ways. And I think for this team, for young players learning the AAA level as they go, this has been a very good stretch for them.
I'm glad you went there talking about some of the youth in that Bison's clubhouse. You get a guy back from the big leagues in Jonathan Davis, who by normal standards is quite the young man, though now becomes a father of 2. And a congratulations to the Davis family as they welcome their son to the mix as well to join their daughter, Capri. Some cute pictures on social media for sure. But JD, coming back to AAA, what does that mean for the clubhouse? A guy who, youthful, sure, knows a lot of these guys from his time in the minor leagues who are currently with Buffalo, but brings that big league pedigree and a lot of that experience to the clubhouse. What does that add to the mix for Buffalo?
I think it adds a great personality to the clubhouse, and somebody who always has a smile on his face, as you well know, and somebody who, maybe wasn't a top prospect in the organization, but he put himself on the map. And I think that's something that a lot of these players can look at. As Jonathan Davis has just always gone out. He's a hard-nosed player. He's kind of a throwback player. He'll run through the outfield wall if you need him to make it out. And I think, to see a player like that, who isn't the biggest either, he's strong. If you see Jonathan Davis, he is as strong of a player as you'll find, but height-wise, he's not the tallest player. He's not, some of the things scouts might look for. He doesn't have all of that, but he makes up for it for his ability in the field, for his drive to be the best, and his, like I said, his drive to put his body on the line for the team. So I think you combine that with off the field is just gregarious personality, and you've got a guy that really can the young guys can look towards, and he really adds a lot to the clubhouse.
Certainly one of the friendliest guys, one of the warmest guys in the system, and somebody who has been a joy to work with up and down, making his way from the lowest ranks all the way to the big leagues. A terrific story, Jonathan Davis. Pat, before we move on to AA New Hampshire and bring in newcomer Nathan Strauss, want to get your thoughts on 3 bullpen arms who we haven't really talked about on Around the Nest so far this season. That would be Connor Overton, Kirby Snead, and Brian Baker, guys who certainly continue to be dominant in relief for the Bisons. A couple of spot starts mixed in between. I think Connor Overton might have 4 starts along the way, but overall coming out of the pen. Can you just give us a little bit of what it's like watching those guys do their thing and seeing how they can impact AAA Buffalo?
Yeah, and when you talk about the pitching staff, they not only have the best ERA of AAA and one of the top 3 in minor league baseball, period, but the Bison bullpen has the best team ERA in AAA. So whether you look at Brian Baker, who has now 5 saves and has pitched well in a big spot last night, picked up his 5th save. You mentioned Connor Overton. He's made a couple of spot starts, and guys we maybe not knew a lot about going into 2021. They've come up and they haven't missed a beat, and I think that's really says a lot. And Kirby Snead, a guy who probably is in the conversation for a call up at some point. He and Taylor Saucedo have really combined to be steadying forces from the left side out of the bullpen. So I look at Snead, a player who went to the All-Star game in AAA in 2019, pitched well for Buffalo then, pitching well again for the team this year, and for Brian Baker, somebody who came up late in the season, past the All-Star break in 2019. We saw how electric his stuff could be. He's carried that over here to 2021. You have someone like Connor Overton, another arm that can just do whatever the pitching staff has asked. And I think for Jeff Ware, that's been maybe the nicest thing he's been able to really have a lot of different complementary pieces and not had to worry much about his bullpen this season. So those three guys are right at the top of the list, and you can add in a couple other names along the way as well. And a reason why the Bison's pitching staff has been one of the best in minor league baseball, period.
Well, Buffalo looking to stay hot as they continue their Syracuse series this weekend and continue to roll out there in AAA. Pat, we got some fan questions, and we're going to try and speed it up so we can get you around at the very end to answer some questions. Are we going to be able to keep you?
Sounds great. I'll be here. Looking forward to seeing Nathan make his debut in a second.
Let's do it. Let's drop down the ladder to Double-A New Hampshire. We got the youngster, the young prodigy, Nathan Strauss, reporting live from Prince George's Stadium in Bowie, Maryland, where the red-hot Fisher Cats have entered one of the finest, I don't want to say facilities because I've been to Prince George's Stadium, not to knock it. It's a serviceable ballpark, but going up against one of the finest teams in minor league baseball prior to this series, that's the Bowie Bay Sox. No problem for the Fisher Kitties. Nathan, welcome to Around the Nest. Let's jump right to it. What's it been like calling games for New Hampshire this year in your first season on the mic for the Cats?
First of all, thank you for having me. Obviously, you had my role for a number of years, so I think I'm the first person to work with Tyler since you left for the C's. So you left big shoes to fill. But first of all, it's been an awesome opportunity for me, and I want to thank Tyler and the Fisher Cats for letting me call these games. But down here at Prince George's Stadium for my first solo road trip, going up against a Bowie team that, by the numbers, I believe has more top 100 prospects on it than any other individual team in all of the minor leagues. This is a team that started off the year 20-5, has the number 2 overall prospect in Adley Rutschman, who's now the top ranked prospect in the minor leagues after Wander Franco's call up. I don't want to say less than optimistic, but if you look at the records of these two teams, I had my trepidations. I had my fears about how New Hampshire was going to perform this series. But they have been absolutely on fire, particularly offensively. They now lead the league in runs scored by 21, 268 runs on the season. They've scored 10 or more runs in 5 of the last 6 games on this 6-game winning streak, just 2 games away from tying the all-time Fisher Cats' longest winning streak record, which was set a number of years ago. So it's been really incredible to watch.
Certainly all sorts of production from up and down the lineup, but there's a guy who I really want to get your take on. What in the Vinny Capra is going on with the guy from Richmond Spiders? I mean, good golly gosh, Vinny Capra making his Double-A debut 2 years ago. We got a chance to see him shine, but suddenly this year, after a short stint, not being completely 100% healthy, has somehow seemed to find it and has emerged as one of the finest hitters in the circuit this year. What has Vinny been doing so well?
Yeah, so he was injured for a lot of May, and he came back in the first week of June. But he really came back into the lineup 2 Sundays ago against Portland. He was hitting out of the 9-hole as a DH, and out of nowhere, he rips 2 bombs at Hadlock Field, the first multi-home run game of his career. And after that, he just has not slowed down whatsoever. I got a chance to talk to him about 10 days ago, and I asked him if there was anything in particular that he was doing different. And he just said that he's been more focused and dialed in when he was in his recovery from his injury. And in June, he's hitting .531. His average is now, I think, .411 on the year. A limited sample size. He's only played in a little under half of our games so far, but he shows no sign of slowing down. Last night in the 9th inning, he ripped a home run and no doubter to left field. He has a career high 9-game hit streak going. I believe a 10-game on base streak as well. And it's really nice to see because he's someone who I think was a little overshadowed when the lineups or when the roster was released at the beginning of this year. You know, he's an A10 sort of mid-major guy, was drafted out of Richmond, and sort of put up, you know, he hit mid 200s. I think he hit like 260 over the 2019 season, but the strides that he's taken, I think he's made his stance a lot more compact. He's used the entire field very effectively. So teams have started to shift against him as a righty, and he's had 2 opposite field hits already through the infield between first and second this series. So His patience at the plate has been a great factor. His power has certainly improved. But all around, it's just been a massive improvement. And it's great to see because at 24 years old, he's one of the oldest position players we have on the roster.
Want to talk about some of those other position players, specifically some of the top prospects. We do this every week on Around the Nest. Check Jordan Groshans, Austin Martin, Gabriel Moreno, Otto Lopez. Can you give us a quick take about what those guys have been doing over the last week or so?
Yeah, so Austin Martin actually, as of about half an hour ago, has been placed on the Austin Martin, as of about half an hour ago, has been placed on the IL, the 7-day IL, retroactive to yesterday. He took a fastball in the brim of his helmet in the 7th inning that actually ricocheted up and over the netting and almost into the press box here. He was replaced in the game by Tanner Kerwer, who I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit later. But presumably it's just a precaution. We don't have the specifics of the injury. But Austin Martin he's doing Austin Martin things. He's hitting 275. He drove in a run with a sac fly. Haven't seen explosive power, but really good slap hitting from the youngster. The most impressive performer, as it has been all season, is Gabriel Moreno. He's hitting 385 with an OPS of 1,122. Both of those numbers are tops in all of AA, not just the AA Northeast. And he just continues to impress. He had a grand slam last week. He homered in 2 straight. He was the AA Northeast Player of the Week as well this past week. Otto Lopez, meanwhile, he's hitting 354. He hit his first home run of the season on Sunday to deep center field at Delta Dental Stadium, which is not an easy area to go yard in a stadium that's relatively hitter friendly. And he's again splitting time between center field and second base. He also DH'd once or twice. And then Jordan Groshans, he's come back into form a little bit in the last week. He's had some injury problems. And in the Fisher Cats' biggest games, when we were putting up 15 and 10 runs, he was going 1 for 4 and 1 for 5. But he did have a solo home run on Sunday. And I think for him, it's all about finding a rhythm. You know, he had an injury that shut him down in 2019, and he hasn't gotten a super extended stretch of games yet. But I'm not worried. I think given where the Blue Jays are, and the same thing is true for Austin Martin, there's no need for either of them to feel pressured, to feel rushed at all. And as the summer goes on, I'm looking for him to really show off his versatility. He's played third base and shortstop, but also a little bit more power, a little bit more pop offensively.
Certainly been fun to watch those box scores coming in from the East Coast out here out west as we get ready for Canadians games. Seeing what's happening with AA New Hampshire has been a treat. And before I give you a Canadians update, Nathan, can you quickly touch on some former Cs in Tanner Kerwer, Marcus Reyes, who were just promoted at the end of our most recent series against the Everett Aqua Sox? They made the cross-country trek out to the Northeast and have joined the team there in Bowie. Loved Marcus Reyes here in Advanced Day. The same with Tanner Kerwer. I like to call him on our broadcast a straw that stirs the drink. Obviously, the biggest jump before we're going to the major leagues is from Advanced Day to AA. And so it's going to be a great test for the pride of Sherwood Park, Alberta. What's your early looks at Kerwer and Reyes telling you?
So I got to interview Tanner the other day on Tuesday and spoke to him about what it was like growing up just outside of Edmonton. And he has played now in 2 games. He actually has played in all 3 games. He came in for Austin Martin last night and got 1 at bat. Offensively, he has had his struggles. He struck out 3 times in his debut, went 0 for 5. On Wednesday night, he hit a double, which is to date his only hit. He also walked. He's 1 for 8 right now. Again, small sample size. I like what I'm seeing from him. He's got a very active bat. He pulled 2 fly balls to deep left field that nearly went yard. And I think for him, it's just going to be about, again, rhythm, like getting adjusted to the pitchers at this level. It's obviously a huge step up, but the speed, I think, is really going to come in handy. The Fisher Cats have stolen more bases than any other team in the league. And obviously he had 26 steals for Vancouver. So it seems like a natural fit. And as for Reyes, he went, I believe, an inning and 2/3 on Tuesday night. It was very fascinating watching him. So he's only the second lefty that we have in our bullpen right now. And he has this very deliberate windup where he almost looks all the way back at second base. It's very old school sort of. But yeah, you know, he was hitting 90, 91, so not an overpowering guy. He's only 5'11", but I liked what I saw. Right now, Brody Rodning was our only lefty. And so giving just a little bit of a different option for Cesar Martin out of the bullpen is going to be big as this summer rolls on.
Nathan Strauss killing it on his very first edition of Around the Nest. Nathan, thank you very much. Stick around. We got some fan questions coming our way at the very end of our level updates, but I'll get right to it for Vancouver and I'll keep it brief. Here tonight in Eugene, after 3 games, took a big one yesterday, 13-9. As the Seas continue to find ways to beat the top teams in the circuit, Eugene entered yesterday's game 13 games above 500, alone at the top in first place in the 6-team High A West, and a full 4.5 games over Vancouver until last night, as the Seas were able to use some early offense, as well as a big 6-run 7th inning to put themselves over the top. Spencer Horwitz with his second home run of the year, a 3-run blast with 2 outs that put the Seas up by a run, and the race was on from there. So it's certainly been great to see Donnie Murphy's Canadians find ways to win games. And yesterday, by winning 13-9, after losing the first 2 games of this series, not only snapping Eugene's historic 8-game winning streak, which matches the highest streak in the league this year, set by Vancouver back in May when they rattled off 8 consecutive wins, but for the Seas, a chance to very much get a series split tonight as they send Luis Quinones to the mound, but they have not lost more than 2 games in a row this year. It's been now 6 different 2-game losing skids. But can you really call it a losing skid when it's only 2 consecutive losses? I personally don't think so. So very much a great look for Donnie Murphy's club, and the guys continue to find ways to bounce back as they did last night. Looking up and down this roster, without Tanner Kerwer and without Marcus Reyes, most notably losing Tanner Kerwer, who's going to be the next man up? And for me, it's Cameron Eden. He has been the 3-hole hitter all year and taking over as that almost electric addition to the lineup and a guy you can count on to reach base at least once or twice every game. Last night, he set a new singles game high by scoring 4 runs. He swiped 3 bases in a game earlier this week to match a mark set by Tanner Kerwer earlier this season, and he continues to find his power stroke as well. I talked to Cameron at the beginning of the season, and he said one of his goals this year is to really kind of expand his power bat. This is a guy, of course, who can reach base via the single, then steal a couple of bags by using his speed. But now he's trying to work gap to gap while still staying relatively small while working with hitting coach Ryan Wright to expand that power stroke. He's got 3 homers and finds ways to go gap to gap, as we mentioned. So certainly looking forward for Cameron to continue to carry the load. And it's also been really fun to watch Rafael Antigua over the past week, a guy who perhaps like Vinny Capra doesn't get a lot of that publicity or a lot of that attention, if you will, but certainly is somebody who has come into his own of late, had 2 home runs in 2 games played against the high-powered Aqua Sox of Everett last week, and is now seems to be the de facto leadoff man as an infielder who can slot in at second base and third base, and we even saw him in right field 2 nights ago. So Rafael Antigua, a guy we have yet to talk about here on Around the Nest, but somebody who we've enjoyed watching for sure here in Vancouver. On the mound, certainly great to see Paxton Schultz continuing to contribute. This is the Sunday starter in what was a 6-man rotation until this series. So Paxton will go tomorrow on Saturday night at PK Park on the campus of the University of Oregon. He has been very steady, despite a couple of hiccups over his last 2 starts, but a guy who gets the ball, hops on the mound, and is going to attack hitters no matter what he's feeling that day. And it's certainly been fun to watch Paxton pitch. Out of the pen, the former Ole Miss running rebel Parker Caracci came in the game last night when things got a little hairy late after 8 men had come to the dish for Eugene and they had the tying run in the on-deck circle. But Caracci came in, and as he's done almost all year, is the most used reliever for Vancouver. He has put the water on the fire of the opposing team, if you will, and he has been fantastic. And for me, would likely be the next guy promoted to Double-A when that roster spot opens up. So Nathan, be prepared for a little bit of run and rebel action from Parker Caracci, as we've enjoyed having him here in Vancouver. I could go on and on about the Seas, but you know what? We want to make sure we bring in AT, Mr. Andrew Thriffiley from down there with Low-A Dunedin in Buffalo as a mercenary for the Blue Jays, as he's been sent up there from Dunedin to help out with things at Salem Field. Andrew, I know I'm chunking a little bit on the hotel internet here, but looks like we still got you. Can you tell us what's been going on with Dunedin over the last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theme so far is confidence now. I think in that first month of the year, you could have expected us to maybe get a little down on ourselves with only 8 wins. But I think now they've started to figure it out, and those wins are starting to come, and they're starting to come quick. You look at a guy like Naswell Paulino that just won Player of the Week for the league. Gave up no runs that week, but over the month of June, he's got a 1.35 ERA, a 0.95 WHIP. So it's just a guy that's going out there and dominating on the mound each week. And then again, you look at Sem Robberse. If I ever give a makeup on the guy, he's such a nice kid off the field, in the clubhouse. He's just fun to be around. He's a 19-year-old kid just loving playing the game. But once he steps on that mound, he talks to me about it. He's got that killer mentality of he wants to go out there and dominate you and get everyone out, go deep into the game as he possibly can. And he's got that mentality to keep going up the ladder. So I'm excited to see how he does. He goes tonight. Wish I could be there, but it's been a fun team to be around. They're everybody's confidence right now. I saw last night we scored 16 runs. So everybody's hot. So it's good to see.
Always nice when the offense and the pitching staff firing literally on all cylinders. Time for our weekly O update. What's been going on with Orelvis Martinez?
Yeah, I think at this point the numbers speak for themselves. So I can give you my makeup on O as well. O is he's got that quiet confidence about him. Kind of keeps to himself, but he's a superstar, and he's willing to talk to his teammates and kind of show them what he's seeing. And he's starting to find those adjustments at the plate. I think maybe early in the season he would just get down on himself, but he's been talking with Coach Matty Young throughout the games, saying, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have swung at that pitch. It was poor pitch recognition," and coming back and fixing those mistakes in game now. And I think for a kid that young to start to get that already, it just shows how great he can be.
Wrapping up our thoughts about Dunedin, Andrew, want to ask you about a guy we haven't talked about here on the Nest this season. That's Leo Jimenez, batting .295, near the top or at the top of the team rankings. What should we expect from Leo Jimenez going forward? As mentioned, we have yet to bring him up here on Around the Nest, but would love to get your take.
Yeah, he had a ridiculous on-base streak going. I forget if it's still going right now. I apologize. I've been away from the team for a couple of days, but he was hitting 185 at the end of May, and he's almost up to 300, leading the team on average now. He sprays the ball all over the field. It's impressive to watch him play. When we first came into the season, Matt Young, we took our first BP of the season before the season started. And Matt Young told me, "You got to watch this kid hit. He can just spray the ball everywhere." You're still waiting for those home runs to come, still waiting for his first home run of his career, actually, after a couple of years. But he feels like it's close, and I think he's going to get it eventually. But he can hit the ball all over, and it's impressive to see.
Well, certainly looking forward to watching more success come out of the Low A Southeast. You mentioned it, Andrew, the slow start. Great to see the DJs having some confidence here in June. And if we took the records based month by month, this is an entirely different team here in the second month of the season for Low A Dunedin. And going to Palm Beach next week, don't go viral. We know those Cardinals. They love to tweet. They love to get silly. But looking forward to Dunedin, hopefully taking it to those Redbirds. Even back in my New Hampshire days, Tyler Murray and I, we would look at social media and just kind of cringe a little bit when we'd see Palm Beach doing their thing on social. So for now, we hope that the DJs give them nothing to tweet about. And as always, my friend, we thank you very much for the updates. We got some hard outs today. Very, very responsible guys. You guys all are between, in fact, we've got an interview at AA. We've got all sorts of things happening at Salem Field with Pat and Andrew. So before we say goodbye, we have our first ever fan submissions in terms of some questions about what people have been pondering as they listen to Around the Nest around the week. So first and foremost, we're going to back up to Pat and get Pat's perspective on how the missed season of playing time and development potentially increase the risk profile of whether it's any Jays prospects or guys at the highest level of the minors who certainly know what it's like to get through an entire season, but even with the layoff, perhaps changing their perspective a bit. Pat, is there anything you can share about what either you've heard or maybe your opinion on how that missed season has been affecting AAA Buffalo?
Yeah, I think it just in general, it has affected AAA, period. And the people I've talked to, the broadcasters in the league have told me, and noticing this from a distance, but confirming that really the first month of the season, you noticed that guys were just a little bit rusty. Even though they may have gone to spring training last year, been at an alternate site, and went to spring training this year, there still was a difference of playing games. And that's what we maybe saw from some players in the month of May. Now that we go to June, you're really seeing traditional baseball and a lot less mistakes. The pitching has caught up to the hitting. Pitching was woefully underperforming in the league, not for the Bison's perspective, because they pretty much led the way wire to wire in ERA, but just overall, a lot of walks, a lot of pitchers not finding their way. But as this month has gone on in June, as we get towards the end of the second month of the season, just in general, playing games again, you're really starting to see how players are able to get back in and how much not playing games last year really impacted everybody across the board.
We had a question come in asking about Otto Lopez and, of course, his elite hit tool, a guy who rattled off an impressive hitting streak for AA New Hampshire. But what about his defense? As we talked to Nathan Strauss in Bowie today with the Fisher Cats. Nathan, what have you seen from Otto Lopez on defense, as, of course, we've seen what he can do at the plate?
So Otto Lopez, like a lot of other players under Cesar Martin this year, has been shifted around a little bit. He obviously started off as a second baseman, but he told us in an interview 2 weeks ago that the position that he's been enjoying the most is actually center field. So looking at this chart that I'm actually just about finishing up for our game notes, he's played 12 games in center field this season, 22 at second base. And he talks about how he just likes to be able to see the whole field. And I think he sort of is known for being a sort of 4.5 tool kind of guy. The power isn't necessarily there on offense, but he will always hit for great numbers. And really his speed defensively is very evident. He ranges very well to his left playing second base. In center field, he has tremendous range into both alleys. And I think there's really nothing to worry about defensively. I think a lot of guys at the beginning of this year, especially the AA level, were putting up some gaudy errors. But that's also just a byproduct of rust. And Otto Lopez, unlike many others, was actually able to get some real game experience playing in the Dominican League this past winter. So the defense will come. He's a little older than some of the other top 10 prospects in the Jays system. But with the hitting for average that he has, the speed up the base paths, I think that teams will always need outfielders and versatile infielders to fill gaps. And I think he absolutely projects as someone who can be in the lineup every day of the week, no matter where he ends up being slotted in.
Thank you, Nathan. We did have a question come in about Canadians ace Adam Klaufenstein, who certainly has had some struggles in advanced A this year through the first 2 months, though we've seen flashes of brilliance, and why the Blue Jays think so highly of the 20-year-old from Texas. And Klaufenstein was on the hill last night in Eugene, gave up a leadoff home run, then back-to-back doubles, and suddenly found himself in a 2-0 hole after 3 batters faced, but then answered back to get the next 3 hitters and limit the damage. And it's a guy who, as we have talked about a number of different players across the system where the numbers don't necessarily tell the whole story. Of course, the ERA certainly north of 6.5, which is not where he wants it to be. But this is a guy at just 20 years old who has the stuff to make it in the big leagues. That's no doubt in my mind. And I'm no means a talent evaluator, but certainly someone who's seen enough minor league baseball to know that a guy has it or a guy doesn't. And for Klauf, it's just a matter of getting more reps, getting more comfortable with himself. And in a lot of ways, he's kind of like a puppy dog in that he's still growing into his body. He's a large man, 6'5", 215 pounds, but still kind of filling out, if you will, both physically and mentally. But I've been really impressed in my few conversations I've gotten to have with him about how he carries himself. He looks at the game from a perspective that I would say most 20-year-olds or even 25-year-olds might not. And he understands not just what he's capable of, but he understands the weight of that top 10 prospect ranking, but doesn't allow it to get into his head. I think this is a guy who could certainly be a little bit more apathetic about his results, knowing, hey, I've got the stuff, I've got the talent, I've got the bank account, I'm going to be fine. He wants to go out and perform every 5th day for his team. And you could tell last night he was a little disappointed in himself, but he still was the first guy out of the dugout to greet his teammates coming off the field every inning after he had been removed. So for me, the biggest thing Klaufenstein's going to continue to focus on is being consistent and really dialing in that command of some pretty excellent stuff that he's got, whether it's a fastball or a breaking pitch. Adam certainly knows how to use it. So no cause for alarm. Certainly if anybody were just to check his player page and they see the ERA and the win-loss record, they say, oh no, what's going on with Klauf? But really, it's got a long road ahead, a storied big league career, we hope certainly for Klaufenstein, but a guy that I really enjoyed watching pitch, even through the struggles. And he goes about the game in such a way that he knows that it's a long road ahead and an opportunity for him to continue to work, to grow, to get better. And he's not trying to put too much pressure on himself. So to those of you who might be concerned about Klaufenstein's performance thus far, stay tuned. I'm feeling really good about the rest of this month of June. And of course, July, August, and September in what really is his first season in full season ball. So cheers to Klaufenstein as he continues to work. And our final question today, we're going to head down to Andrew to talk about Addison Barger, a guy who potentially could make a jump into a top prospect ranking, having a terrific year. Does he crack that 30 list? Is he on it already? Shame on me for not knowing off the top of my head. But this is a guy who's got some sneaky pop and somebody who certainly is very much an electric addition to that DJ's lineup.
Yeah, he swings with a lot of hate behind it, to be honest. He wants to hit every ball out. He wants to hit every ball hard. I think a great thing that he's shown this season is his defensive versatility. He's played first base, he's played second base, he's played shortstop, he's played third base. He's willing to move all over because that bat's going to play. He's just got to get that defense ready to go, and he'll be perfectly fine.
Well, as always, gentlemen, we've come to an end of Around the Nest 2.0, and hard to believe, like we told you at the top of the show, 7 episodes in and so many more to go. As always, my thanks to my co-hosts. We've got Pat, AAA Buffalo, with a splash of the big leaguers as well. Nathan Strauss making his Around the Nest debut. Thank you, Nathan. And of course, Andrew Lowe Dunedin doing his thing as always today, representing in Buffalo as well. First time ever we've had 2 correspondents coming to us from the Empire State. So cheers to all 3 of you as a part of the Around the Nest today. And of course, our intrepid producer, Leo Mui. Thank you, Leo, for all the work that you do. Until next week on Around the Nest, cheers to the Blue Jays. Let's get another org sweep tonight. We'll see you next time on Around the Nest 2.0.